Good evening. Welcome to this October 7th, 2019 meeting of the Norfolk City Council. To begin, I will call the meeting to order and call your attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the council chambers. If you'd now join me in rising for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Beth.
Granquist.
Here.
Lange.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Wiebelhaus. Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
File.
Here.
With that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
And I would entertain a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
That moves us to item number 18 on the council agenda under special presentations. At this time, the Norfolk Morning and Noon Optimist Clubs will recognize a member of the Norfolk Fire Division. So, Mr. Clausen, I invite you forward. Good evening.
Again, my name is Mark Clausen. I am a member of the Norfolk Noon Optimist Club. One of the purposes of an Optimist Club is to inspire a respect for law. And one of the things that the Morning and Noon Optimist Club has done the last few years is seek out nominations for people in that special position, who serve us every day. During the National Night Out, we had the opportunity to recognize Detective Lou Siefker from the Norfolk PD and Sergeant Eric Pfeiffer from the Nebraska State Patrol. And here during Fire Prevention Week, we have the honor and privilege to recognize someone from the Norfolk Fire Division. And this person was nominated by Chief Cordes. And I would ask firefighter, paramedic, Kevin Armbruster to come forward, please. I'm going to read Chief Cordes' nomination of Kevin. Kevin is a 15-year veteran of the Fire Division. Over the course of his time with Norfolk Fire, Kevin has served as a valued and respected employee, spending most of his time as a member of A Shift. Kevin has a broad range of skills, talents, and abilities in all aspects of the Fire Division operations, but is especially valuable in his role on the hazardous materials team and in support of the purchase and maintenance of our self-contained breathing apparatus. With great attention to detail and absolute pride in his work, Kevin consistently demonstrates unwavering commitment to the operational care of the equipment to protect our staff from inherent hazards on the job. He achieves this by going the extra mile to complete the needed research and development of specifications to assure the equipment being purchased is safe, efficient, and is a quality expenditure of limited budget dollars. His efforts in the development of training props and his assistance in completing Homeland Security grant documentation has been invaluable in our efforts to maintain our role as a state-sponsored regional hazmat team. Additionally, Kevin oversees the technical role of the purchase and maintenance of our valuable gas monitoring equipment, which is both time-consuming and exhausting. The reliability of these devices operating during critical incidences is directly proportionate to the care they receive on the front end. Kevin delivers this care consistently and thoroughly. Much of the extra efforts that Kevin performs are out of sight and away from the public eye and can sometimes go unnoticed. His quiet behind-the-scenes commitment to Norfolk Fire has gone unnoticed, and as a result comes this heartfelt and sincere nomination to ensure credit goes exactly where it is deserved. Kevin is certainly worthy of recognition for his efforts in serving Norfolk Fire and Rescue, and as Fire Chief, I wholeheartedly support the recommendation that I received by an A-Shift teammate for your consideration this year. Congratulations, Kevin.
I hope somebody's getting a picture of this.
Chief, yeah, did you? Here's a certificate of appreciation, and a little extra appreciation from the Optimist Clubs of Norfolk.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, here's your chance for a big speech.
That's not my style.
No? Okay.
Like I said, I like to stay below.
Okay, all right. Well, appreciate all the work that earned you that recognition, and all our public safety officers for being here tonight to join in the commendation. And thank you to the Optimist Club and all our civic service clubs who do this on a regular basis, honoring and recognizing our public servants. Thank you. Moving on, we move to number 19 on the agenda, and this is a proclamation for November 1st, 2019 as Extra Mile Day. Extra Mile Day, whereas the city of Norfolk, Nebraska is a community that acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas the city of Norfolk is a community that encourages citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And Norfolk is a community that chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within the community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And the city of Norfolk acknowledges the mission of the Extra Mile America Foundation to create 550 Extra Mile cities and states in America, and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2019. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moaning, Mayor of the city of Norfolk, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2009 as Extra Mile Day in the city of Norfolk, and urge each individual in our community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, or world a better place. Is there anyone here tonight to receive the Extra Mile Proclamation? Does not appear so. Item 20, proclamation for the week of October 6th through 12th, 2019 as Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the city of Norfolk, Nebraska is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Norfolk, and fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And the majority of U.S. fire deaths, 4 out of 5, occur at home each year. And working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And Norfolk's residents should install smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And Norfolk's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And the 2019 Fire Prevention Week theme, Not Every Hero Wears a Cape, Plan and Practice Your Escape, effectively serves to remind us that we need to take personal steps to increase our safety from fire. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moaning, Mayor of the city of Norfolk, do hereby proclaim October 6th through 12th, 2019 as Fire Prevention Week in the city of Norfolk, and urge all the people of Norfolk to be aware of their surroundings, look for available ways out in the event of a fire or other emergency, respond when the smoke alarm sounds by exiting the building immediately, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Norfolk's Fire and Emergency Services during Fire Prevention Week 2019. Anyone here? Our Public Safety Director, Shane Widener, is here to accept that proclamation and maybe say a few words for us. Shane.
He'll be first.
He declines addressing the council. That's okay.
I'll be darned.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for recognizing Fire Prevention Week. As we do every year, we really want to encourage the community to practice fire safety. We just had an incident last week, in fact, where a neighbor, during the middle of the day, we had 2 of these incidents here within the last month or so, where we've had daytime fires that were recognized by neighbors. And this last particular fire, we had the owner of the home, and it was still sleeping. He was on night shift, and he was home sleeping that morning. And if it wasn't for the quick action of the neighbors and actually one of the contractors that were working next door, we probably would have had a different outcome. So fire prevention, fire safety, and recognition of each other and watching out for your neighbor and your neighbor's property and your own personal property is important. And practicing these kind of fire safety measures really makes a big difference in how we respond as a community. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for recognizing Fire Prevention Week. Yes, sir.
I took grandsons down to your open house.
Yes.
This afternoon. They thought it was awesome. The guys there were great. They really worked with the kids well. Walked them around, showed them the ladder truck and all the different trucks, and they fell in love with the drone guy. That's what they call him.
We do have a firefighter that is a well-known drone guy that responds to amazing number of emergencies throughout northeast Nebraska, and he's one of our reserve firefighters that has really got top-notch equipment, and he's a drone pilot, certified drone pilot, and he does tremendous work. So we appreciate that. Yeah, the firefighters love to show off their gear and talk about what they do with all the kids and the parents. So thank you very much.
Cut them down on the cookie, but other than that, everything was
There you go. There you go.
Very
Thank
good. Thank you, Shane. Moving on, item number 21, under public hearings and related action. We'll open this public hearing to consider an amendment to the City Code Land Use Matrix, Section 27-401, to allow campgrounds as a conditional use in zoning district RM, and to allow an indoor shooting archery range as a conditional use in zoning districts C1, C2, C2A, C3, BP, and I1. And to open the hearing, Valerie Grimes, our city planner, could you give us some background, please?
Yes, thank you. This land use matrix is part of the zoning code. It's a rather extensive matrix of hundreds of uses that are permitted or conditional uses are not permitted. One thing with RM zoning, which is mobile home park, the only thing permitted in RM zoning currently is a true mobile home. There is a mobile home park that would like to have trailers and RVs for kind of the itinerant workers. And so this, by putting this C, which would be a conditional use permit in RM for campgrounds, that would allow them to ask the question of the Planning Commission to have a certain number of RV trailers in RM zoning intermixed with the mobile home trailers. And then the other part of the item is a indoor shooting archery gallery. This comes up as a question probably about once a year to us. Somebody asks about it. And currently we do not have any way to let them have an indoor shooting range inside city limits or in any of our zoning categories. This would, again, put a conditional use permit in the commercial and the I1 zoning category, if you so choose, that they could ask the question. If that does pass, then the next public hearing goes along with the indoor shooting range. If that area of the land use matrix revision does not pass tonight, then there's no reason to have the next public hearing, which would revise some text to allow discharge of firearms inside city limits for this specific thing.
Okay, thank you, Val. Questions for Val? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Hearing, seeing no one, we'll close the discussion and ask for Planning Commission report. Please, Beth.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 17, 2019 to consider amending the official city code land use matrix section 27401 to allow campgrounds as a conditional use in zoning district RM and to allow indoor shooting archery ranges as a conditional use in zoning districts C1, C2, C2A, C3, BP, and I1. The Planning Commission recommends approval on an 8-0 vote.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Now close the hearing and move to item number 22. Look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5634, approving an amendment to the City Code Land Use Matrix, Section 27-401, to allow campgrounds as a conditional use in zoning district RM and to allow an indoor shooting archery range as a conditional use in zoning district C1, C2, C2A, C3, BP, and I1.
Your Honor, go ahead. That offer for consideration ordinance number 5634.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion, council? Val, we heard the Planning Commission report on this, unanimous vote. Is there driving motivation to take this up right now? Was there any discussion at the Planning Commission about attempts in the near future to change, to use the conditional use permit for either instance, the campgrounds or the indoor firing range?
The campground probably would be used in probably the next month or so, because there is a mobile home court who actually has them right now, and so this would potentially be a way for them to be okay in there. The shooting range, we have not had any questions on that recently, but we tend to kind of group things together a little bit in the land use matrix since it's such a big section of code.
Mm-hmm. Is this a fairly common allowance in terms of campgrounds within that particular zoning district?
I guess I've seen it both ways. There are some feelings of people who live there that it's their neighborhood and they would prefer not to have these there. But then there's also the need for where to put the RVs and the trailers for people who come and work for, say, 3 months on a large-scale project or something along those lines.
Okay. Any concerns from existing tenants of trailer homes that popped up at Planning Commission?
We did not get any official opposition to this from the trailer courts, no.
Okay.
You mentioned the number of RVs and trailers you can park there per trailer park. What is that number, or is that something you'll discuss at the classes?
That would come up as part of the public hearing at the conditional use permit process. Yeah.
Other questions or discussion, council? Okay. If none, short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend the land use matrix in section 27401 to allow campgrounds as a conditional use in zoning district RM, to allow indoor shooting archery ranges as conditional uses in zoning districts C1, C2, C2A, C3, BP, and I1, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5634 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5634 on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5634 carries on second and third.
Okay, item number 23. We'll open this public hearing to consider amending section 14-242 of the City Code to clarify that shooting galleries, gun clubs, and others that fall under the exception to the prohibition of discharging firearms must be operating under a conditional use permit issued by the Planning Commission or City Council, and to add an exception to the prohibition wherein the council may give temporary permission to discharging firearms. And to kick off the public hearing, I think we hear from Shane, Public Safety.
When Val and staff was working on this item for indoor shooting ranges and having the ability to ask those questions within the zoning context, it came up that we had needed permission from the council and some ordinance work here. So we just placed this back in your purview for permission for temporary things like Boy Scouts shooting, having a BB gun competition. That comes up periodically, and we do exceptions for that. So we just wanted to carve that back out to have that permission being able to ask that you always had as a council, mayor and council, to continue that on going forward without going through the conditional use permit. So basically, that's what this does. So it allows us to be where you were before, in addition to doing what Val has done with the planning and our zoning matrix. So
Those opportunities you're talking about, Shane, within the confines of an indoor range?
no, or outdoor by special permit for those rare instances like the Boy Scouts when they shoot their BB guns at a controlled little range that they set up. They've set those up at different parks before, Taha in particular. You'd still have ability to do that as a mayor and council if you chose to do that. So we didn't want to have to run those special small events like that all the way through a conditional use permit process.
Okay.
So we wanted to keep that ability for you to exempt those kind of things out if you choose to do that as mayor and council.
Sure. So each special event would have to be approved by council?
Right, those
Under the
special ones would have to be approved, yes.
Very good. This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close the hearing. Move to item number 24. Would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5635, approving an amendment to section 14-242 of the city code to clarify that shooting galleries, gun clubs, and others that fall under the exception to the prohibition of discharging firearms must be operating under a conditional use permit issued by the Planning Commission or City Council, and to add an exception to the prohibition wherein the council may give temporary permission to discharging firearms.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5635.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion on this, council, or questions?
So, Val, currently, there's no way of having a shooting gallery in the city other than the matrix now that we added it?
Right, before that land use matrix, there wasn't a way to legally have an indoor shooting range in any of the zoning categories.
Really? Okay.
Any further questions or discussion, council? Okay. Hearing none, short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 14-242 of the official city code to clarify that shooting galleries, gun clubs, and others that fall under the exception to the prohibition of discharging firearms must be operating under a conditional use permit issued by the Planning Commission or City Council, to add an exception to the prohibition wherein the council may give temporary permission to discharge firearms, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5635 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'd move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5635 on second and third reading.
Second.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5635 carries on second and third.
Moves us to our regular agenda, item number 25. Would entertain a motion to consider approval to award a contract to JJK Construction LLC of Ceresco, Nebraska for the 2019 Norfolk Bridge Repairs Project for an amount of $508,948.29.
I'll make the motion, Your Honor.
Motion and second. And Steve Ramus, our City Public Works Director, please give us some background on this, please.
We are council. We've been working for the last year and a half or so on some bridge repair contracts. Actually, we had about 5 bridges in the community that needed repair. One of those was done by the city. One of those we put on hold. And then 3 of those were bid out as a function of this bid. Those were First Street over the levee, north of Benjamin Avenue over the levee, and then Elm Avenue over the North Fork. We had fairly competitive bids. You can see there the low bid was $508,000, just shy of $509. The high bid was $743,000. We are recommending award of the bid to JJ Construction out of Ceresco, Nebraska. The bridges all are receiving similar repair. The bridge decks, specifically on First and Elm, are have quite a bit of spalling on there, so they're partial depth, full depth spall repair. The First Street Bridge is also going to have some bearing pad damage that we'll repair. The Benjamin Avenue project has some spall repair. Primarily that project is replacement of the approach slabs. They've been deteriorating for some time. The joints are in pretty bad shape, and we do get several calls on that particular stretch of road and those damaged expansion joints. The Benjamin Avenue Bridge will also receive new approach guardrail, and we'll take that opportunity with those rail out when we put those back to put in an asphalt surface prior to putting the guardrail posts in. That should help us keep the weeds at bay around those guardrail structures. So those are the 3 projects that are included. The contractor, should you approve this, is ready to start construction tomorrow. We have put out media that First Street would be closed south of Eisenhower and somewhere slightly north of Benjamin Avenue. But they're ready to go to work.
Would, Steve, a couple of these projects most likely go into spring of next year?
That is correct. We would anticipate First Street being completely done this year. The Benjamin Avenue project, we'll kind of gauge what the weather forecasts look like over a 4-week period. If it doesn't look very good, we won't dig into the approaches. We'll just kind of maybe work on the guardrail repair, that type stuff, anything we can behind or outside of the street. If the weather window looks good, we'll probably dig into the one side of the approaches anyway, attempt to get half of it done. The Elm Bridge would not occur, the work on Elm Avenue Bridge would not occur until after school's out next May.
Okay.
So Steve, the Benjamin Avenue Bridge, so what we're doing there, I mean, is it a Band-Aid situation for when we go to do the rest of Benjamin Avenue, or are we doing it so that we
This is the repairs that would be needed, not a Band-Aid.
I guess, are we becoming wide enough then to allow for our 5-lane, or is that narrowing back down, or are the two, have the two worked together enough so that
The bridge that we're repairing here is over the levee. The
oh,
Benjamin Avenue
okay,
project
excuse me, I was on the wrong.
stops at First.
Yeah, you're west of, I thought you were that little one. Okay. Or east of First Street.
Any other questions or discussion, council? These projects are much needed, and it's time to get them done once and for all. And so Hopefully we have some good weather yet this fall so we can get as much done as possible. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 26, I would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5636, annexing the right-of-way along the east side of Highway 35, located in the southwest quarter of Section 25, Township 24 North, Range 1, west of the 6 p.m. Madison County, Nebraska.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion and second. And again, Steve, some background on this, please.
Mayor, council members, when we annex property, we always annex to the east side or the opposite side of the adjacent road. City limits now with the Dial Property Project or the Victory Village project up there. City limits now goes all the way to Highway 35. As we were annexing that particular parcel into city limits, we noticed that there's a small piece on the east side of Highway 35 that was not annexed in the past, when there were some other annexing to the south here or north of 275, that Wisner West property. And so this is just kind of cleaning that up so that we're in general compliance with what we would typically do when we annex, and it's bringing in this kind of this odd little sliver of property into city limits. It is all right away. It's all right away associated with Highway 35.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions, comments, council? No, in short title, please, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to annex to said city a part of the southwest quarter of Section 25, Township 24 North, Range 1, west of the 6 p.m., Madison County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, with that, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5636 carries on first reading only.
Item number 27, I would look for a motion to consider approval of an agreement between Pictometry International Corporation and the City of Norfolk to obtain oblique aerial photography for the City of Norfolk in 3 projects totaling $136,848 to be made in annual payments of approximately $15,205.34.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for consideration.
Motion and second. And Steve, some background on this, please.
Mayor and council, this is our pictometry imagery that we use both within our pictometry software and our GIS software. This would be a contract for 3 flights. The flights are 3 years apart. First flight would be 20, second flight would be 23, and the third flight would be 26. So this gets us out there. The next contract we would have to work on would be somewhere out there around 2028 for a 29 flight. So this is going to get us out there about 10 years for the imagery that we use within City Hall. We do use this quite extensively by multiple departments. Planning and zoning, engineering, economic development, as well as in our GIS area. The $15,205, the annual payment is spread across, I believe, three divisions of the city. And so we spread that across where 2 of those departments or divisions that tend to use it the most.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions? Any other discussion, council? If none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 28, would entertain a motion to consider resolution number 2019-52, adopting the 2020 through 2029 capital improvement program.
I'd offer for consideration the resolution, Your Honor, 2019-52.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second. And Lyle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Lyle Lutton, Risk Manager, Operations Guy for the city.
Going to go over the CIP for you for the next 10 years here very, very briefly. We should be done in a couple hours, and we'll be out of here.
Thanks for abbreviating.
It's on page 28 of your packet there. I'm going to give you a Cliff Notes version of the CIP, how it works. You can look over it as I'm yapping and see if there's any questions that pop out at you, and we'll address them here in just a minute. So that CIP is, like I said, is the Capital Improvements Program. It's a 10-year outlook into the future. It's very similar in nature to what you saw during the budget discussions a couple months ago or so. Planning Commission actually got first crack at it here about a month ago, 2 weeks ago, September 17th. Right here, same setting. They asked me a few questions, and here we are now. In general, it is for purchases in excess of $50,000. Now, you'll see some on there that are less, but for the most part, $50,000 or greater over the next 10 years is a projection tool for financial purposes. You'll notice everything on there has a funding source of some sort, and we'll go over an example here in just a second. The one good thing about the CIP is it's a projection. So if we have a piece of equipment, like a street sweeper will say, that is functioning really well or really bad, lemon, sometimes we get those, we can bump that forward. It's not necessarily set in stone as you see it right now. If we get to 5 years down the road, it's time to buy a new sweeper, that thing is functioning exceptionally well, we have needs in other areas, we can bump that back a year and likewise bump it forward if we need to. The folks that make up this team here, we'll just go over that briefly, is Public Works Director here, Stephen, and Public Safety Director Shane, John Cahill, one of the staff engineers, myself, Randy Gates, and Sheila Rios, and actually Randy and Sheila are the workhorses for this. It's what this spreadsheet is kind of the tip of the iceberg of everything that goes into it. It's a process. It starts midwinter with input from all the division heads about where their division needs are at, what they foresee in the future. Start gathering that information, plunking it into this giant spreadsheet that has a whole bunch of gears that spits this out on the back end of it. And that's what you see before you here. We'll walk through a quick example here. We'll use that same spreadsheet on page 128. No, excuse me, that same sweeper there. Page 128, number 7 in the first column. You'll see that's in the street department. We have 2 street sweepers that go from basically about when spring breaks until the snow starts falling, and then they start replacing all those moving parts and pieces in there. We get about 6 to 7 years life expectancy on them. So if you look at number 7 and work your way across there, those numbers 2714 and 2716 are for internal tracking purposes for our asset allocation and management. Since there are 2 of them, you will also see another sweeper on the next page on number 19. It's specific piece of equipment. But the project priority is a B. We expect it to have a life expectancy of 7 years. Cost is going to be what we assume to be about $240,000. Excuse me. And in the 2021 life cycle there is when we're expecting to have that purchase come about. That's kind of how it's laid out. The general fund items are the first couple pages, and then the enterprise funds are the next ones. Is there anything in there that catches your eye? I want to throw a disclaimer on there quick. This is, I've got a general understanding about how all of this stuff works, but if you want to get into the minutia of the horsepower and the torque or whatever else, I'm gonna be calling in reinforcements here from the subject matter experts. With that, though, fire away with your questions.
Well, isn't it fair to say that this is a pretty lengthy internal process that marches alongside the budget review process yearly, and we're continually updating this plan moving forward, and so it's really focused on the long term, trying to estimate what our city's long-term needs are to maintain a quality level of service.
That's exactly right. It's a tool for the long-term forecasting, and and expenses that starts early in the year. When I say early, it's late winter, early spring. We get this started to get ironed out, budget process rolls along, and then we finish off with this, and in the not too distant future, we're gonna start it right back up again.
And we've all been through sessions, multiple sessions in the
Yep.
last few weeks and months reviewing this, and I think it's also fair to say this is a capital investment plan that really focuses on accommodating and facilitating new growth in the community and infrastructure development, maintenance, quality of life enhancements, and increased public services throughout the community. So,
That's an accurate statement.
No changes or adjustments since the last time we looked at this.
If they were very, very minor. And I can't think of any off the top of my head. Randy, anything?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
any questions or comments?
I looked at them all, Lyle, but I didn't see any changes.
Okay.
You're just asking for information.
Just the information.
Right, yeah.
He remembers all the numbers from last year.
Okay. All right, I think you're off the hook. Thanks, Lon.
Top shoes on, too.
And we appreciate all the work that goes into this long-term planning effort. With citizen input, I should add. Any other discussion? Council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2019-52 is adopted.
Okay. Moves us to item number 29. We look for a motion to consider approval of an enhanced employment area authorized work agreement with Dial Sunset Mall LLC and NSP LLC, both Nebraska limited liability companies, for the Norfolk Sunset Plaza Mall Enhanced Employment Area Project.
I'll make the motion.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second. And Randy, could you give us
Yes,
some
Your
background
Honor.
on this, please?
At the August 5th council meeting, you gentlemen designated the Sunset Plaza Mall, except the Target store, an enhanced employment area eligible for imposition of a occupation tax pursuant to the community development law. There's an ordinance after this that would authorize that occupation tax. This agreement says how that occupation tax will be used, and that occupation tax would be imposed on essentially the same items that's subject to the city's 1% sales tax. This agreement provides for issuance of up to $4.1 million of debt to be used for improvements to the interior and exterior of the mall and parking lot, and authorizes the occupation tax to be utilized for up to 20 years to pay that debt. That debt is only payable from the occupation tax revenue and is not a general obligation of the city. With Herberger's closing, I understand a significant portion of the funding is expected to be used for leasehold improvements related to the new tenants. But there will be improvements to the parking lot and interior and exterior of the mall and entrances, roof repair, and that type of thing. And this will be administered in much the same way as the city's current food and beverage occupation tax. The city would keep 2% of the occupation tax to administer the program. And this is very similar to tax increment financing. Instead of having a redevelopment agreement, you have this authorized work agreement. And instead of having incremental real estate taxes go to pay off the debt, you have an occupation tax, which is used to pay off the debt. This ordinance is written such that if you approve it tonight, it does not go into effect unless the occupation tax in the next agenda item is fully approved on 3 readings and goes into effect. Representatives from the developer are here. I'm sure they're anxious to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Randy.
Michael Carter on behalf of NSP and Dow Sunset Mall here. I guess no real update from the last time I was here. this agreement that we've negotiated with, you know, Baird Home and your council and Randy. You know, we've gone back and forth, and I believe we have it in final form now. And we're looking forward to getting the improvements going in the spring.
Has there been a refreshment, or a refresh of those improvements that we can take a look at? Or the proposed improvements?
By refreshment, we have, you mean by like a new design or
Yeah.
for the store from the exterior? Yeah, we do have, I don't have them with me, but we do have architects rendering. We had How Architectures come up and do a rendering that would show how the parking lot and coming into the food court all be changed. And we have 3 or 4 for the Herberger space. But the problem with that is that every tenant, a lot of that's tenant dependent on their fascias and their signs and things like that, and everyone has different one. So we have about, to be honest with you, about 15 of those, depending which tenant mix that we have. And that's what we're going on. So we did do, I think it's been in the packet before, the rendering for the food court and the entrance on that side. And with regards to the tenants that from the Herberger space, we actually have, like I said, 10 to 15 of those, depending on which tenant mix we have. And some of them wrap around to the back side, back to the Pennies, because there's an opening there too. It was on the back side, and then other ones, for a certain tenant, it's going to require a dock up by the Pizza Hut, or not Pizza Hut, but the Pizza.
Pizza Ranch.
Yes.
And you have new tenants signed for that space?
They are not signed yet. No.
They are not signed?
No. It's all in negotiation stages. We're negotiating with many. And that's part of the problem is to fit the proper tenants in the right spaces and, you know, the mix, and unfortunately, the layouts, you know, and they have different requirements for different things. And part of that obviously too is what can, the loading docks and things like that. And there's really 2 major tenants which I can't disclose, or have both given us strong indications, and they would be the ones that would dictate how the Herberger space will be, you know, relayed out. And
So
if-
potential tenants?
Yes, that we are actively speaking with. And actually, they have a meeting, and there's a ICSC in Chicago, which is a regional, that our leasing agents are meeting with them.
And when do you expect to know that?
Unfortunately, one tenant, the one tenant told us today, I tried to push them to see if I could get for this meeting, and they said they're probably not gonna give us a firm answer until the first week of December. And the other tenant, we could probably at least be in lease form with them, except for the fact that with this other tenant may dictate of how we change the terms with them, so we haven't been able to do that. So we will not start construction until the spring. That would be the earliest before we get them. I mean, that's just, you know, not realistic, especially because of winter too. I mean, one, time and to get through the process, but in addition to that, you know, winter. And tenants now, when they're doing their allocations, they've already have their proposed 2020 stores openings, and these would be 2021 openings, you know, with their real estate committees and their allocations and things like that.
I believe the last time you folks were in town, I think it was June,
Probably, yeah.
we had talked about how Dial was going to be able to market this idea to the community. What have you done in that regard?
Actually, not very much until we have the tenants. I mean, right now, until we pick up the tenants, you know, that's where we are. So, I mean, we run our mall marketing and things like that, but we haven't done anything in particular until we have our tenants. We'd hoped by now we would have the tenants to be announced, because they said they would have us told by late August or early September, but now that one tenant's been pushed back to December.
I believe our conversation on marketing was to market the idea of the EEA to the citizenry so they would understand how that works, how their tax dollars would be invested. I believe that was the idea of the marketing. Have you done anything in that regard?
No, I think, I'm not sure exactly how they've spoken to the papers or not, but again, I think we were waiting to find out. We have been in discussion with our tenants and all that, but not to the citizenry. You're right, we have not been out to the citizenry.
And why did you tell us you would do that and then you did not?
I guess we're, again, waiting on tenants. I think it's tenant-driven. And we apologize, maybe we should have been more aggressive, but it's tenant-driven, so.
Mr. Carter, the big change from the previous EEA agreement, which was focusing the investments on the larger overall facility, now you're proposing to focus most of the investment within the empty Herberger's wing. Fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You know, this has generated discussion in the community. It's not an easy discussion to have. We know the world of retail has changed pretty significantly in the last few decades, and the model of enclosed malls like Sunset Plaza that were popular in the 60s, 70s, and 80s has struggled, and continues to struggle. The trend in non-online retail sales leads to outdoor, walkable, mixed-use developments. Given this, I know I've been asked questions in the community about, and I think they're valid questions, such as if this property was a priority for its owners, why weren't facility improvements maintained and updates done over the last 20 years? And I'll go on with a couple more, just bear with me. The second, what makes anyone think that internal improvements to one wing of a struggling mall that happens to be part of a dying model can change anything for this facility? And thirdly, why should taxpayers and existing mall tenants who already pay high rates of rent essentially be asked to bail out a property that for so many years has appeared to be an afterthought for its owners? I think those are all pretty fair questions.
I agree they're fair questions, and, you know, I don't want to debate what we have and haven't done to the mall. I mean, there was a, you know, I think the roof obviously had some issues, which, as far as I know, all of the major issues have been corrected with the roof, and the new ones will be completed with the improvements here. And, you know, the bathrooms became an eyesore, obviously, and as a result of the councilman, we've modified that. Again, this is very tenant-driven, and even the tenants that are there to make modifications, including the Target, require even tenant approval to even change things and bring updates and things like that. And obviously, they've become much more in the last 4 to 5 years agreeable to that. There was a time when certain tenants wouldn't let us do anything because that's just the way it was. And even if we wanted to, we could obviously fix the roof and those type of things. That's not what I'm talking about. But to make it a mall that is like a outside mall type concept, we would even require the tenants. And there was a time when the major tenants wouldn't even do that for us, because we approached them, not necessarily on this one, but on many malls in many different situations. So I understand their concern. You know, with regards to the bailout, we understand it's the 1% employment tax. This has been a model that has become fairly widely used within communities the size of Norfolk. We, in fact, did it in Hayes Mall, where it was successful, and we brought in 3 new tenants. And the answer is when you talk about the tenants, it's not just saving the mall. Herberger's is one big tenant. This will be bringing in 4 or 5 tenants. And so, and all of them, or most of them, will have exterior entrances. And so a lot of it will be opening up to the outside concept using the current structure. So it's not, we understand all of it won't be dumping into one tenant, even if it's that one, doesn't even want to open into the mall. We're trying to press that issue because we think it's important that I think we will restrict some flow and things like that. So you are right, these new tenants really are open air to the outside. And all of those tenants will open to the exterior. And again, one is not a retail user. It's a service tenant of between 10 and 15,000 square feet. So we are making the modifications.
So, Mr. Carter, if you have tenants that don't open to the interior of the mall, to what benefit is that to the existing retailers
Well,
already in them.
That's what we're trying to not, make that. If not, we would move them to a different position where it wouldn't be near, where the other tenants would move into the mall, and they would just kind of have an exterior entrance out to the side.
Did I hear you say that the majority of this redevelopment would be in the old Herberger space?
Yes, that's accurate.
So if the tax generated helps you pay the bond for just that space, what benefit is that to existing businesses that are already in there?
Well, it's not just that, but the majority is. Well, because retail drives more tenants. Right now they have a empty 75,000 or 77,000 square foot empty bay that doesn't draw tenants. The tenants we're talking about are regional tenants that currently aren't in the city, which brings more people to the mall. I mean, specifically you can't say this tenant will be helped more like this. As a matter of fact, many of the tenants that we're talking about have clauses in their lease that says they're paying us less rent while this Herberger's is empty until we bring in, what they call replacement tenants of a certain magnitude. So obviously they feel that way.
So you have, you're going to be investing that amount of money in the old Herberger space. How does that help I believe there are 12 or 13 empty spots in there right now, other
That would
than
probably be accurate.
than Herberger's. How does that investment help you rent and bring tenants into those 12, which I believe is about a third of the available space
That would probably
in
be
the
more
mall?
accurate, yes. Because they're major retailers that aren't there to generate traffic. I mean,
They're not there to generate traffic?
no, they are. I mean, that's the major retailers are there to generate the traffic.
So how does that help you lease those 12 or 13 spaces where there's nobody now?
Well, because hopefully they come because there's more traffic into the mall.
So are you in negotiations with 12 or 13 new tenants?
Not 12 or 13. I know in a meeting about 2 weeks ago, they were in discussions with 2 to 3.
2 to 3, which would be located in the old Herberger space?
No, in the interior mall.
In the interior?
For the lack of a better word, the interior mall.
But we have been told for about a year now, maybe longer, that you've been in discussions with
Yes, that's true.
major tenants within the Herberger space, right?
That's true.
And I understand these things take time. I think, I guess, council would be presented with some more confidence in this if we had an indication that those negotiations and discussions were eminently fruitful. But we have not gotten that signal, and frankly, the lack of communication during this period under which we're considering this has not helped. It's not been helpful from my perspective.
I mean, I don't want to say either way, we apologize, but it is taking longer than we would want to. I mean,
Sure.
We're not only spending $4 million, we're putting significant sums into this too. It's not just this $4 million to create the space. It's going to require significantly more money that the owners are investing in this property. I mean, I don't want to get the feeling that it's just this money. To bring these tenants in, it's going to require significantly more additional funds of developer money.
And what would that figure be?
We would be the last pro forma I saw would have us putting in about 3.5.
You would put in 3.5 additional to the 4.1?
Yes. Additional. Again, that would be when the whole thing was complete. I mean, it'll be in chunks, but yes.
Over what time frame?
3 to 4 years. I mean, the tenants, we'll hopefully get the major ones, and then you talk about going the interior. And the agreement itself requires us to have the money spent before 2024. Or we wouldn't use the full bond. Not use it, but not be allowed to use the bond.
If the majority of the money is going towards revamping the Herberger space and not a lot of that's going back to help the existing retailers, What are you guys doing to enhance the shopper's experience then?
Well, again, I don't want to, because of the numbers that are involved and the partitions and the separating the utilities and the loading docks and all that, that's what's causing the cost. We are still, again, improving, just as the renderings that we've already had is the food court, or, you know, the main entrance off there. We are putting significant, and there is some more work to be done on the roof, and we did just complete the bathrooms. And again, the interior, you know, is that, and the tenants will drive, you know, if we bring in more retailers, that will increase traffic for everybody, which will, you know, help the interior mall tenants. And again, most of those have clauses in their lease. They're paying us, I don't know about most isn't the right word, a significant amount of people are paying less rent because that space is not full, which is, you know, shows their feeling on why, you know, we need more, or, you know, that box filled. So.
Part of the education part of it is with how this tax works and how it's used. I've had phone calls of people wanting to know how we know this money isn't sent back. And I think Councilman Merrill touched on that about educating, marketing, letting people know what the process is. I think that needs to happen because people are concerned about that. You know, I explained to them that money is only used in the mall according to how they say they will use it. We get receipts, we reimburse them the money.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. But they haven't seen that anymore, so they're insecure about it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that aren't sure they like that. So.
But, you know, by statute, we can only use the money for certain required things, and we have an agreement, you know, that we negotiated with, you know, Michael Sands in the city and Randy. So, but I understand that concern.
I think I don't know, it might be helpful to see the drawings, the renderings, what you're going to do. It's been more than a year and a half since anybody's taken a look at that, and I'm surprised, frankly, that you didn't bring those with you this evening.
Well, we're more than happy to share them. I mean, we've had them, and I know they were shown at the meeting early. Jack, when was that meeting? In the city council meeting, we had the slideshow and the presentation that was shown to many of the councilmen.
This year?
It was, yes, this year. It was,
Yeah,
I'm going to say
okay.
in the spring. I can't remember exactly who. Jim was there. I think, were you? I can't remember who was. We met with him different times. But we have shown, there was a new PowerPoint presentation that was shown and shown the different layouts that we would have. And again, I think that was, it was in the spring sometime. I guess I don't remember exactly when.
Any other questions, comments? You know, it's, as I said earlier, it's not an easy discussion. We by no means want to offer mixed messages. We know, as a community, we know how important retail is, being a retail trade and commerce center of this area of the state. I think the important thing for us to consider is if we're encouraging retail, let's encourage retail that meets the needs of the market today and customer preference. And I'm not sure that the positioning and the preparation has been done through the years to do that. And here we are now, with a lot of us being felt that we're being put in a position to ask taxpayers and existing tenants to finance a bailout of something that should have been maintained and improved and upgraded to be in position without needing the bailout today.
I can appreciate that position, but I mean, obviously, we were very surprised when Herberger's closed because Herberger's themselves were very profitable. They were part of a national Bontons that went bankrupt. It was not Herberger's, and they were even up until the last minute anticipated to be bought, just that unit, by somebody else. So I can appreciate that, and as you know, when these discussions started talking, we started talking about that, and I understand. But again, we have done this in Hayes and many other communities. And I think in the presentations that we've shown how it has improved the mall. And unfortunately, you are 100% correct that the mall in and of itself, all retail is bad. I mean, everybody pull up your phones every day. There's a new. I mean, Forever 21 just filed bankruptcy. I mean, it's a new trend. And so again, we are looking at these tenants mostly based off of the other tenants. And one of these tenants that we're very strongly, heavily involved in is a service tenant. It's a larger service tenant. It's not a retail tenant. But other than to say, we want this as badly as you do. We have, I mean, forgetting about the specifics, I mean, we currently have a mortgage on the property that if it were to fail, would cause severe pain. I mean, I know there may be a feeling that we haven't maybe reinvested, but I can assure you there is significant risk on Dial's part, and if it were to fail, the mall, it would cause significant loss to the Dial company. That's, you know, a fact too. So.
Any other questions? Council? Thank you. Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Further discussion, council, on consideration of the enhanced employment area authorized work agreement. Again, this is the next step. Prior weeks ago, we approved the establishment of the EEA. This is the next step in the process. The step after this, if this should go forward, would be considering the imposition of the 1% sales tax. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Voting in favor of the agreement, council members Lange, Jackson, Clausen, File. Voting against the agreement, Granquist, can't see that, Merrill, and Murin.
Advance. Did it need five? Or just a majority? Just a, so it needs to read it as an advance.
Well, yeah, you can get it to 5, at least, you do.
So if the voted yes, they can bring it to five. If the vote no,
No.
it stays, it fails.
Yes, that's
Correct.
correct.
Can you explain that?
Because we only have 4 votes in the affirmative, we do require a 5th vote in order for passage. So in this instance, the mayor can vote. If he votes no, then this ordinance would fail at this time.
Do I vote or just decline to vote?
You can decline.
You can decline to vote if you would prefer to, but if you want to.
I do have the chance to vote. I will vote no. Which,
Yes.
yes, so. can
So
you read that?
the motion on that agreement fails.
Which renders item number 30 moot, right?
Yes.
Okay. And therefore, that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. Good evening.